According to a report by the World Economic Forum, India has moved up to the 127th position on the World Gender Parity Index. We've managed to attain parity in enrollment across all levels of education. But still the question is, when will we attain parity across all sectors? In fact, how does the evaluation work in the first place? Let's get perspective on this. My colleague Bhavya Dua is standing by to explain it to us. Bhavya.
The Global Gender Gap Report of World Economic Forum, which was released this week, noted that women worldwide may have to wait another 131 years to achieve gender parity with men. This grim forecast implies that a relatively perfect gender equality may not be fully realized until 2154. The Global Gender Gap Report 2023, that assesses equality across various sectors including economy, politics, health and education, noted that overall gender gap closed by a mere 0.3% compared to the previous year. Now let's look at some of the key findings of this report. As we discussed that at current rate of progress, it will take another 131 years to reach full gender parity. While the global parity score recovered to pre-pandemic levels, the overall rate of change slowed down significantly. Calculated over a period since 2016, it will take another 162 years to close the political empowerment gender gap, another 169 years for economic participation and opportunity gender gap, and 16 years for the educational attainment gender gap, whereas the time to close the health and survival gender gap remained undefined. Let's look at some other findings as well. While no country achieved full gender parity, the top 9 countries, which include Iceland, Norway, Finland, New Zealand, Sweden, Germany, Nicaragua, Namibia and Lithuania, managed to close the gender gap by at least 80%. Iceland was at the top of the list for the 14th consecutive year with 91.2% of its overall gender gap closed. Notably, it's the only country with a score which is above 90%. Now let's look at some of the Indian numbers. This year, India ranked 127 out of 146 countries, an improvement of 8 positions and 1.4 percentage points since last year's report. The country has closed 64.3% of the overall gender gap. Notably, India had reached parity in enrollment across all levels of education. However, the report indicated that the country has achieved only 36.7% parity in economic participation and opportunity. While there were positive strides in wage and income parity, the representation of women in senior positions and technical roles slightly declined since last year, posing challenges for India's progress in economic empowerment. On the political front, India registered 25.3% gender parity, with women representing 15.1% of parliament lawmakers, marking the highest representation since the debut 2006 editor of the report. In terms of health and survival, India saw improvement with 1.9 percentage point increase in the sex ratio at birth, reaching 92.7% parity. A rise in women's economic participation and achieving gender parity in leadership in both business and government are the 2 key levers for addressing broader gender gaps in households, societies and economies. Collective, coordinated and bold action by private sector and state-owned enterprises leaders will be instrumental in accelerating progress towards gender parity and igniting renewed growth and greater resilience.